G'day everyone. To be honest, I can't actually believe that this is my first vlog for 2019. Life gets busy, photography gets busy in my day-to-day different things that I do, but I'm very excited this morning to be up at the southern tip of the Daintree rainforest area at Mossman. In particular this morning, going to be having a little bit of an explore through Mossman Gorge. If you do see someone shadowing me, it's because I'm not alone. My beautiful wife is actually accompanying me on this journey this morning, so I'm kind of hoping that she'll be able to help me out with a little bit of B-roll footage, maybe a little bit of inspiration, and definitely a bit of laughing at my bloopers and outtakes as we go along and film. But we've actually been up here for a couple of days, and while it's been absolutely beautiful, one of the challenges I kind of face when we travel is that when you go to places that are so popular, in particular at the very end of school holidays, in such a beautiful setting as this one in a rainforest, that while it's tranquil and peaceful and beautiful and serene and all those wonderful words around you, when you've got thousands of people also occupying your space, from a photographer's perspective, I sometimes find it a little bit tricky to see photographs, if that makes sense, to actually have a look around, embrace what's going on. So we're going to try and beat that this morning. We've been up at the crack of dawn, a little 2-kilometre walk up the hill, and I'm hoping that that'll just give me a little bit of creative and mental space to see what's going on. So that being said, let's check it out. Okay, so first spot here, I'll tell a little confession. I was here the other morning and the photo I was able to come up with wasn't too bad in my opinion, but I would like to just give it another go, take two, see if I can improve a couple of things. One of the things that I find a little, gives me a little bit of grief creatively when I come to a spot like this, or a cityscape, or wherever it is in fact, is just being able to simplify what's in front of me. Quite often I come to this type of place and immediately am struck by how beautiful it is and how serene and those types of things, but to create the photograph that reflects that emotion or that initial feeling, it sometimes takes me just a little while to break through what's in front of me. So this morning I'm going to look at it in terms of shapes. So what's in front of me, we've got boulders that are quite round, like a sphere and that type of thing, but we've also got some jagged edges with this tree here, but also rainforest. There's a lot of strong vertical lines in the trees themselves, so understanding that and how you might want to put shapes within your photograph, whether you're looking at a symmetrical composition with something in the middle and then equal space either side, or the rule of thirds, which is kind of what I'm going to go for here. So behind me there's a beautiful boulder that just sort of sits out isolated in the water. I'm going to try and stick that to the right hand third. The tree here, which is sort of overarching from the left, that'll be on the left vertical third. And then even just some of the layers in terms of the rock, the water and the trees, they'll make up my other 3 horizontal thirds, if that makes sense. But I'm going to give it a go. The second thing with this photo really quickly is that I don't think I can get what I need based on the other day taking a horizontal landscape photo. So I'm actually going to turn my camera to a vertical orientation, and I'm going to take probably 4 images vertically and stitch them together later on. That'll just allow me to keep the integrity of my lines in check, and it'll actually almost help compress the image a little bit as well, I think. So I'm going to get stuck into it and take a couple of photos, and yeah, hopefully it turns out the way I like. Okay, so it's kind of one of those days where I reckon I could stop every 2 minutes and spend half an hour, but that's just not practical. But one little spot here, just going to try, well, not something different, but if you look over my shoulder, and it might be a little bit difficult to see in the camera, but where the water is, there's a bit of just the way the water's cascading down through the gorge in a bit of an S-bend shape. There is a gap through the trees, and it's backed by plenty of green, you know, rainforesty sort of background there. So just going to take a vertical shot, try and slow the shutter speed down to about 2 or 3 seconds, f-stop 18 to maybe 20, let that run out, try and capture a little bit of motion within the water and just frame it amongst the beautiful vertical lines of the trees, and we'll see how we go. Alrighty, so I've just had a quick little pack up from our last spot there. Had about 15-20 people just sort of rolled through quite a popular little lookout vantage point where we took that photo. So yeah, in the interest of sharing a beautiful morning with them, we've kept moving, but the photograph itself I'm actually quite comfortable with. Interesting thing to note, on the back of the camera where the metering bar is, the little automatic scale, it says what the camera thinks is might be underexposed, well exposed, overexposed. When it was telling me that it was well exposed, it was actually quite a bit brighter, and that's just because it was metering off the actual water running over the rocks itself. My vision for the photograph that I had in mind before I took it was to probably underexpose the whole photo a little bit to bring out the definition within the water and the rocks, and actually have the trees and the greens a little bit darker. So yeah, in camera that looks pretty good, so I'll pop that up in a sec. But we're now into a 2.5 kilometre circuit track, which probably won't be as busy, but already it looks absolutely beautiful. I mean, you could be very easily lost in this rainforest, I think. So we're going to stick to the path and keep bumbling along, but I've no doubt there'll be some great little spots coming up for some photos. So we've just popped down a little trail off the main walking track, led by the sound of water, and my brain is basically going into creative meltdown, because if you're the kind of person that likes to shoot waterfalls and rainforests, then literally this place is absolutely stunning. I'll say it again, I could spend a day here. I could spend a week here. These clouds that are over the top are creating perfect lighting conditions as well. I'm going to set up camp and yeah, I think get a feel and a sense for this place, and then just sort of let my creativity do the rest, because yeah, this is just absolutely beautiful. So I've settled on a composition here amongst so much beauty around us. What I'm hoping to get is, on the far right of the screen, some of this tree which overarches the little pond here, stretching right across, taking in the waterfall, taking in a lot of the rocks, even the rocks sitting above the waterfall there, and the tree which overarches sort of on a little outcrop on the far left of the composition. Technically, I'm using the same type of approach that I used earlier today, so you'll notice the camera here is set to portrait orientation, and so I'm looking to take about 4 or 5 photos and then stitch them together at the end. A couple of things to note. What I've really tried to do is to slow down the shutter speed to get that nice, silky, smooth effect of the water. Polarizer filter is definitely a must. I've taken a couple of test shots with that. I couldn't quite get my shutter speed lower, so I've whipped out the trusty 6-stop ND filter as well. Now that's easily getting me to a shutter speed of around about 5 to 8 seconds, depending on the part of the image. What I mean by when I say that is that On the right hand side of the image where the tree is, it's a bit darker, so I need to have a longer shutter speed, which has been about 8 seconds. The middle 2 or 3 frames where the water is, because of the light reflecting off that water, it's quite bright. If I was to leave it at the same exposure as the tree, the water would be blown out. It'd be too bright, the highlights would be shot, and I'd have no detail left in that water. So I've just sped up the shutter speed to like 5 seconds, and then over to the left of the image, it's about, I think, 6-8 seconds again, because there's not so much of the glare off the water. Another thing to note with a long exposure here is that I've shut my little window here. Alrighty, if I was to leave that open, especially with a long exposure, the end result on my photograph would be a bit of a ghosted, flary type result, which is not desirable. So just make sure, if your camera does it, long exposures, you can open and close that little window very easily. If you don't have that, then just put your hat over the top. Even a little bit of sticky tape and cardboard that you can manufacture will do the same job and do it really well. Okay, so I've found myself nestled away down here, quite close to the water. The hero of my shot here is this rock that's right in front of me. It's beautiful green moss growing on it, adding some lovely contrast to the rocks around it. And then obviously the water that's cascading down the gorge here is creating what I'm hoping some really strong leading lines with the texture in the water. Again, because there's been so much rain here in the last few months, there's quite a lot of water finding its way down the gorge, which is very beautiful to look at, but for the sake of a photograph, I'll touch on it again, there's so much white going on over the rocks here. It might be just take away a little bit of contrast, but all in all, it's still just so stunning that I'm happy just to potter around here and take a few photographs. Okay, a little bit higher now. Vertical shot, probably just a single vertical shot. It's interesting how you visualize things from different angles until you get there, and then it might just be a little bit different again, but I still don't mind the shot, to be fair. I think it probably gives a bit more of a storytelling aspect to it because I can see more of where the water's coming from. So we'll give it a go. One thing I did forget to mention a little bit earlier, and it's just with regards to using ND filters when you're going for long exposure, really important that you actually focus your lens and your camera onto a point within your photograph. And generally in this situation, I'm aiming for somewhere in the mid-range. So not the closest rock to me, not the furthest thing away, but somewhere in the middle, because I know that at f16, f18, that will give me sharpness all the way through. But once you've focused on that point, to turn your lens to manual focus, then attach your polarizer or ND filter in this case here. Because if you don't, what you'll find is that your poor old camera is going to be struggling to focus on pitch black because the sunglasses are going onto the lens. So just remember, automatic focus, set it, then put onto manual focus, put your filter on, right as rain. Just don't forget, once you take your filters off, to flick your lens back to to automatic focus, otherwise you'll be taking blurry photos and won't know what's going on. Okay, so that's just about a wrap for our time here in beautiful Mossman Gorge this morning, and I can't recommend it highly enough. If you're in the Port Douglas, Mossman region, make sure you drop into here, and a morning won't be enough. With camera in hand, you're going to need at least half a day. I've said it this morning, I'll probably stay here for a week or a month, be it with just my more traditional style of landscape images that I've taken today and that I'll show you, but in particular, I know my mum would love it here because she loves her macro photography. She's into the mushrooms and the butterflies and the bark textures and leaves and stuff like that. So, I mean, look around, it's absolutely paradise for that sort of stuff as well. A couple of takeaways from today upon reflection. I'll start back to our first little stop there. Sometimes when you've got so much around you, think about your composition in terms of shapes, lines, patterns. Take the content away, strip it back. And if you're then looking at circles or rectangles or, you know, strong straight lines or zigzagging S-bend lines, something like that, I think that can then help you picture in your head and see the photograph before you even pull the camera. So yeah, think patterns, lines, textures, that type of thing, a big help. Secondly, said it 100 times, I'm sure, but a tripod is an absolute must. In these conditions where it's actually quite dark, a tripod will transform your photography. It'll allow you to shoot with a longer shutter speed, a lower ISO, get rid of that nasty camera shake and that horrible feeling when you press the shutter and it goes clunk, 5 seconds clunk, and you're holding it in your hand. Try and get that blur out of it. But for now, I reckon it's definitely time for coffee, a quick bite to eat for brekkie. We'll start the walk for 2Ks back down the hill. I know it's been a little while between vlogs for me, but I'd love you to subscribe. I'll keep trying to pump out a bit of content when I can. And don't forget to tick that little bell icon just to let you know when a new vlog comes through. But for now, and from beautiful Mossman Gorge, thanks for watching. Catch you later.
Bye.